What is going on, everyone? It's Phil. It's Matt with Mastercrafted. We are back reviewing what is the next big tournament for Team USA, Home Nations Cup, and who else but Matt Evans to come on and talk about NIDS. There is only one NIDS player insane enough to bring them to one of the biggest team tournaments in the world as we lead up to our next set of Team Worlds 40k. And it is Sam Pope, of course. Of course, he's still on Team USA. He is running his NIDS. And I just sent the list to Matt, and we talked about it prior to the show. But first and foremost, Matt, how are you doing, man? It's good to see you.
Doing great. Been taking a bit of a break from 40K just for the month of April, but happy to jump back in. May's going to be crazy for me, doing 2 big tournaments pretty much back to back, and then excited for 11th edition. But I was pretty excited to get the invite to jump in on this. Always love talking bugs, and then especially Sam Pope is a bug. I want more than aficionado. He is definitely an expert.
I think he's earned the right to say that he can, if he wants to run NIDS at a tournament, doesn't matter how big it is, he will run NIDS.
Yeah, I think he's earned that right for sure.
Well, we'll pull up the list here. We'll take a little look at it. It is Invasion Fleet, so definitely interesting in that aspect. I know, Matt, you have toyed around with it and you really enjoy Invasion Fleet, mainly for the 5-up Feel No Pain, because that is one of the strats that makes you a lot more durable. He couldn't come up with a good name for this list, so Sam, I expect better, but he just said, as I'm submitting this list, my head really hurts. No clever title, maybe something like Metagaming, because the meta is meh, I don't know. So 1,995 points. And right off the bat, we're seeing the new unit, the Tyranid Prime with Lash Whip. Right off the bat, it is included. Sam Pope believes in it. I know Matt Evans believes in it. So tell me, why should every Tyranid player have this in their list?
So the Tyranid Prime with Lash Whip, initially when he came out, unfortunately, he was hot garbage. And it turns out the internet whined and complained enough that GW said, you know what? You're right. Let's make him better. And they dropped him 20 points, which I think is what he should have been in the first place. Actually, he probably should have been like 60, but then they buffed him on top of it. So I think 65 is actually a fantastic price point, because what they did is they gave his Lash Whip extra attacks. So he went from having 3 weapons, but you only get to choose each one, and you're never going to pick the Lash Whip because the Rending Claw is always going to be better, even into T3 profiles, than the Lash Whip, which is 8 attacks at 511, and you're just or 521, but you're never going to take that over 6 attacks at 622 because you want strength 6 against T3. So it just was a weapon that you would literally never pick. And they said, you know what? Here, then you can just have it for free in addition to what you would otherwise be picking. So now you're really good at killing Marines because this Lash Whip is AP2. Those 8 extra attacks actually deal a significant amount of damage. And then against big targets, you can be strength 9, flat 3 damage. Really solid for just a 65-point model. The way I basically look at this guy is as a lictor. So lictors are 60 points. This guy's 65. Both of them can have 6 attacks at 722. And the lictor basically gets fights first, infiltrate, lone op. And this guy gets sustained hits and the 8 extra attacks. So I think it's kind of a reasonable trade-off with a lictor. And why not both, in my opinion? So the other thing is this guy can lead Termagants, Hormagaunts, which is something that Tyranids have not been able to do before. He also has a Blood Surge ability if he is doing so. And I think that is exactly why Sam Pope is taking that in this list, is being able to, as we'll get to in a bit, there's some fairly large Gaunt units in here that I think he would very much like to Blood Surge with, because he is in that Invasion Fleet. He can give the unit a 5-up Feel No Pain to survive more than one activation, and then Blood Surge wherever he wants to go.
Yeah, it can be very dangerous. Blood Surge in 10th edition has been all the rage. There are so many units that do it in different ways, as in some survive with durability, some are super mobile and fast, some are even harder to hit. But the Blood Surge has become a staple of 10th edition, and the Tyranids, I would say, finally have a unit that actually can make use of it. So it makes sense right at the end of 10th edition. Yep. The Tyranids can have something that everyone else has had all edition.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, it is pretty great because it's also kind of a pseudo fights first with being able to Blood Surge in, and your opponent loses their fights first ability, and then it protects you from being shot because you are purely an infantry unit. Unlike a lot of other Tyranid character units are this weird hybrid of monster and infantry. So even if you're in combat, you can still be shot. This unit does not have that.
Yeah. So honestly, I'm sold. I would love a Tyranid Prime with Lash Whip in my Tyranid army if I was running NIDS. I'm not. But yeah, let's move on to the next 3 characters that I think one of them pretty obvious. Neurotyrant, you've spoken about it at length on your channel. You've spoken about it at length when you've come on about how much you enjoy Neurotyrant and how important they are in your list. But the other two, one is going to be obvious when we see the rest of the list. Turvagon makes sense when you're running this many bodies. It does have a place. But the next one is the Winged Hive Tyrant. And I know you are a proponent of the Walking Hive Tyrant, but why do you think Sam Pope would be running something like this?
So it could just be a points thing. I have a feeling it's not, but it is always possible. The Winged Hive Tyrant is 25 points cheaper than the Walking Hive Tyrant. But the other thing that the Winged Hive Tyrant does is in the fight phase, it picks an enemy unit that it can see within 12. And on a 2-up, it reduces the attacks. So there's two things that are going on here. It's either Sam was just like, I just want the cheaper version, so I'm just going to go with the Winged Hive Tyrant, and that's entirely plausible. Or because this is a teams format, he's saying, give me this elite infantry melee matchup, and that's what I want to go into. And the Winged Hive Tyrant is very good at that because your opponent throws in, 10 sword brethren or whatever, and the Winged Hive Tyrant says, okay, you have minus 10 attacks, and he's sitting far enough back that he's not going to get charged himself. The problem that I have with the Winged Hive Tyrant is, again, the ability is phenomenal, except it requires line of sight. Most of the time, he can be within 12 inches of the combat that's going on, but in order for him to have line of sight, that means he's going to be able to be shot most of the time. That's why I don't really run him, but I mean, Sam Pope knows what he's doing. So I'm assuming he has a plan with this guy. That's my guess, is he wants to subtract attacks off of elite infantry melee units, but otherwise, it could also just be he's 25 points cheaper and he wanted the points.
Sure. I think both of those would be completely fair. But now let's move on to the meat and potatoes of this Tyranids list, which is a huge 4x20 mans of Termagants, 110-man of Hormagaunts, and a 20-man of Hormagaunts. So we have all the bodies, everything with spine fists, and then obviously the Hormagaunts with all their talons. Matt, this is max bodies. Yeah. Obviously, Sam sees something in a teams format where this many bodies, this much OC with that Turvagon backing it up. What's the sauce here?
Yeah, so Sam Pope, this is actually very similar. He's been running this kind of list for at least a year and a half, I think even longer than that. He's done very well with 4 units of 20 Termagants in Invasion Fleet with a Turvagon. That is definitely something he's been doing for a while, and it's pretty cool to see him return to that for this kind of event. But he's also included 20-man Hormagaunt squad and a 10-man Hormagaunt squad. So essentially the game plan here is this combination of max bodies. He's got 110 bodies. Now, he's not just going to throw 110 bodies up the table and say, bet you can't kill that many guys, because I promise you, you can. Almost every army in the game can actually kill all 110 of them in about 3 turns. And then a lot of armies can kill all of those in 2 turns. It's actually pretty devastating. I've tried it, and it's scary how quickly everything evaporates. Despite later on in the list, we'll see Sam Pope has Venom Thropes. And that's very important when you have this many Gaunts, because giving these Gaunts stealth and cover basically doubles their durability against any kind of gunline list. So, I mean, Tau, even though they ignore cover, they hate the -1 to hit. Of course, a lot of Tau also ignore hit modifiers. So, but on the off chance that the units that don't, it impacts them a lot. Against guard gunline, they really hate -1 to hit modifiers. And so having all of these Gaunts, because I promise you, the way Sam plays this, is he has a Turvagon and the Venom Thropes literally right next to each other, back behind a wall, and then every single one of these Gaunt units are going to daisy chain back to him. So they're all going to be within range of the Turvagon, and they're going to be in range of the Venom Thropes, and consequently, because of that, they're going to be within 12 of the Hive Tyrant to get a strat reduction, and the entire list is going to function off of that. And basically, Sam's going to send out 1 or 2 of these units in a turn, and then the Termagants have a reactive move if you get within 9. And with that reactive move, you can either body block your opponent from doing other stuff that they want to do with their units, or you can reactive move back behind a wall. It's a very malleable, flexible plan that you can implement while you're playing. And then on top of that, it's very difficult to kill one of these units in a single activation. And so what Sam is going to do is the opponent sits there and throws, they're like, oh, I have a 20-man Termagant squad. Here's my unit that has all the guns. They should be able to pick this up in 1 activation. They fire that entire unit at him. Sam goes, cool, 5-up, feel no pain. And now suddenly you're not killing 20 of them, you're killing 14 of them. And then Sam has 6 guys left, and he says, cool, these are the 6 guys that I daisy chained back to the Turbigon, back behind the wall. You now can't interact with them for the rest of this turn because they're behind the wall and they're super far back, and you can't do anything to them. And then on my turn, my Turbigon is going to heal D3+3 back to this unit. And then I'm going to spend a command point and heal D3+3 back to this unit. And each sequence of that is a separate activation. So the first one is going to bring 5 guys back to those 6, and they get to be within 2-inch coherency and basically start going back towards the objective. And then he spends the strat and he does a second layer, an additional 2 inches forward from the guys that just rezzed in. And he basically gets like 6 inches of movement of, on average, 5 guys that suddenly get to go 6 inches forward and spawn back on the point. And suddenly you didn't steal the primary from him. You didn't kill the unit. It's back to 16 models out of the 20. And you basically did nothing to it.
And then
And
Sam
he
posts
forces.
across the table and smiles and laughs at you and said, "You tried your best."
Yep. And there's just nothing you can do about it because that was the one unit that he put out, and your one activation killed just enough that he was able to hide again, and then he reses back to full strength, and it's really powerful. So I think that's the game plan with the 20-man Termagon squads. And then if you do happen to actually lift the whole unit in one activation, he's like, okay, cool. I have 3 more of these. How many times can you do that? And then he has the 10-man Hormigaunt squad just sits there, and that's to steal your opponent's primary. They have advance and charge. They move 10 inches. It's 20 OC for 65 points. It's absolutely incredible. And he just throws those on an opponent's objective and out OCs them and just steals that primary and keeps his opponent low on the primary game. And then he has the 20-man Hormigaunt squad that does the same thing, but my guess is that's where he's attaching the Lash Whip Prime to. And then this is going to be a unit that can do kind of the same thing as the Termagants. It can't heal twice, but it can heal one time. And it's just going to be a very annoying unit to remove. He can also body block with this unit. 20 guys that move 10 inches with advance and charge. If he gets first turn, they can just throw forward and sit 6 inches away from the opponent and say, yeah, you're not even touching the objectives this turn. You're only coming like 6 inches out of your deployment zone. So that's very solid. And this is just the same plan as the other Hormigants and Termagants, but this unit will actually do damage because these Hormigants are all going to be strength 4 because they're instant apps. They're all going to get sustained hits from the prime. They can probably have lethal hits versus monsters and vehicles because you're playing Invasion Fleet. So you could even start chunking away at those. They're all AP1 natively, so which isn't bad if you're trying to hit a big like T10 3-up save vehicle. You just sit there and say, yeah, but I have 60 attacks with lethal hits from the Hormigants, all at AP1. You get a 4-up save. That's going to chip away like 6 wounds, and then the Prime does 5 or 6 on his own, and you suddenly killed a Rhino. Like, that's something that most Tyranid units can't do. So,
Yeah. It's so interesting. This is the only Tyranids list. I should have prefaced this in the beginning, but this is the only Tyranids at Home Nation Cup. These are the top countries in the area. The USA has flown the team over. You have Team France over there. You also have Wales, Team Ireland, Scotland, Northern Ireland. We already talked about France, England, and Belgium. So some of the best players in Europe, some of the best players in the world are over here. And Sam Pope is confident enough with a list like this, from what we've seen so far, that he knows it's going to do well. So let's move on to what's next that Sam has included, which is a Biovore. I don't know if we need to speak about this much. It is the staple.
best unit in the Tyranid Codex.
Best unit in the Tyranid Codex. He scores you behind enemy lines. He scores you display of might. He scores you everything that you could ever ask for. He is very, very good.
And he protects your home with an 80 mil base for deep strike. Like,
That's
it's
true.
great.
Triple Exocrine, which for me feels very surprising. It is the main damage dealer, I would say, in this. He's relying on the damage 3, which is very effective in this meta right now. You have a lot of Terminator bodies. You have a lot of 3 wound models that are running around, and flat 3 damage, especially when you're going to -1 damage Katans, can actually still make sure that they're still effective.
Yeah. So what's great about this is they're going to have lethal hits, I imagine, from the detachment. And again, this is what Sam has played when he was playing the 4 units of 20 Termagants with a Turbigon. He did also have 3 Exocrines in his lists. This is a very standard thing for him. And I understand completely what he's trying to do with this. I imagine, again, this is, he wants to go into the elite infantry matchup that is melee oriented. This just kind of confirms it for me because basically what these guys are going to do is they're going to hide in his deployment zone, cutting angles only to the objectives and only to the objectives in the center. If his opponent is not on objectives, that's fine. He doesn't care and he doesn't have to shoot them. but any of his opponents, again, these elite infantry bodies that have just cleared out all of these Termagants by killing them in melee on the point, now these Exocrines just lift up that whole unit. And then they will be safe because they're in his deployment zone. And the only way the opponent would be able to really shoot him back is if the opponent brings his own gun platforms onto those objectives in the center. And if his opponent does that, then he can swarm them with all of the gaunts and just tie them up and auto-see them. And yeah, I think that's the game plan there. It's a very solid game plan and basically just tells the opponent, hey, you have to come to me because I'm just going to outscore you, auto-see you with all of these gaunts. You have to come forward, and then once you do, the Exocrines are here to pick you up.
Seems very, very solid. Obviously, they have been a staple of Tyranids for pretty much the entire edition and even ninth edition. They are incredibly solid. And then the last 4 units that we see in Sam Pope's list are a 10-mana Gene Stealers, double Neurolictor, and a unit of Venom Thropes. So 10-mana Gene Stealers, that seems odd. Obviously, you have an infiltrating scouting unit. They don't get what GSC gets, which is a advance in charge. But where do you think a unit like Gene Stealers land in Invasion Fleet in this game plan overall?
So, very interestingly, they do not have a Broodlord. To me, that tells me this is just a trade piece. This is just value. And essentially, so these guys don't even actually have infiltrate. They only have scout. Yeah, no, and they don't have advance and charge. They're way worse than the Gene Stealer Cult ones. That being said, they do go to strength 5 as long as they get synapse. Now, they don't have a Broodlord, so they're not bringing that synapse with them, but Sam does have a Neuro Tyrant. That Neuro Tyrant can give them synapse in the command phase, and they're going to hold on to it until the next command phase. So they're going to hang out in a nice little safe spot within 18 of the Neuro Tyrant. I don't think synapse is going to be an issue. So they are strength 5, and they get lethal hits against monsters' vehicles. I imagine, again, that he can take that. He can spend a strat to also give them sustained hits against infantry, which is not bad for this unit because they have 40 attacks. And they hit on 2s and they reroll 1s. So giving them sustained is also very strong. So my imagining of what this unit is here for is to clean out any infiltrate or early game midfield units that his opponent's going to have that are just cheap bodies. And he wants to get rid of them, but isn't going to throw away a 20-man Gaunt squad to do it. These 10-man Gene Stealer squad, while they're actually more expensive than the 20-man Gaunt squads, are way more difficult to remove. It's 10 guys with 2 wounds apiece, a 5-up invuln. He spends a strat, they get a 5-up feel no pain. And this is basically just his skirmish piece. And if he needs to do actual damage to a unit, because against like Space Marines or something, 20-man Hormagaunt squad is good and has a lot of attacks. But as soon as the opponent has a 3-up armor save and they pop Armor of Contempt, the Hormagaunts don't do anything. These Gene Stealers, they are all AP2. It's a mass of attacks at strength 5. So I think just anything that is in the midfield that's a smaller, like 100-point unit, Gene Stealers are there to go clean it up and require a 200-point unit in response to kill them. And then again, Exocrines can handle whatever killed the Gene Stealers, etc. Same stuff as what we were talking about before. And then the Neurolictors, he does have a Neuro Tyrant, so his Shadows in the Warp is going to be a little more effective. And on that turn that he does that, the Neurolictors are going to be there for whatever units happen to be battle shocked. The Neurolictors can run forward and put those units within 12, suddenly has +1 to wound. And I will actually say, 20 Termagants with +1 to wound spine fists with a Tervagon giving them lethal hits. Spend a strat if you need to for sustained hits. They suddenly do they just hand you 15 saves. You're like, maybe I do just die. So, the Neurolictors are great. They also are fantastic for secondaries. They do infiltrate, although I imagine Sam's not infiltrating them too far forward because the rest of his army isn't keeping up. He definitely doesn't want to lose these pieces, but they're very good, just action monkeys that are hanging back just behind the swarms, just behind the wall. Yeah, just giving out synapse, giving out those little kind of bonuses.
Yeah. Makes complete sense. To be fair, there's very few people that I would bring on to tell me about NIDs because they are so unique and they are in a unique place in the meta, but obviously still successful enough where players like Matt and players like Sam feel like there is play in the top of the meta. So if we have to make our predictions for Sam Pope in terms of how he's going to do this weekend, I don't think he's going to score below a 10. I don't think he is capable with this list of scoring below a 10 if, obviously Team USA, very familiar with pairings. They are prepared. I don't see how this list doesn't keep every single game close.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely what the whole reason that Sam's playing this is very much a blunting list. It can go into probably 85% of the field and just kind of hold them to like a 9-11 And I think that's absolutely his game plan. He's just going to sit there and hold all the primaries and say, you can't keep me from scoring my primaries. I'm going to keep you from scoring your primary. And I've got Shadow in the Warp as an extra pocket, just get out of jail free card if something bad happens, where his opponent, oh no, he kind of messed up. His guys died faster than he thought. And his opponent's going to get a 15. Okay, Shadows. Now his opponent got like a 5. And that's just kind of his get out of jail free card that, can keep the games just nice and close. And I think that's absolutely the game plan for Sam for this event.
Yeah, I can't wait to see how USA does. I think this will be a great kind of gauge to see where we're at, especially going into a team like Team France, our previous winners. And obviously, Team Belgium, you have Liam Gassel, Innes is over there. Obviously, you have some great players in Team England. There is a wealth of talent. And this will be a good moniker to see where we are at in terms of Team USA. So we are definitely rooting you all on. Hopefully you do well and bring back the championship. That way we can get some momentum as we go into Worlds.
Absolutely.
All right, Matt. Any final thoughts?
No, very, very excited. Go Team USA. I'm very excited to see, especially how Sam Pope specifically does. This is a very cool list that he has had a lot of success with in the past, and I think he can do very well with.
Cool. All right. Good luck, guys. And do not forget, victory isn't given. It's forged, and it's forged right here on Mastercrafted.